Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So this video is going to be a playlist of FortiNAC overview, the functionality of FortiNAC. We're going to have some demos on FortiNAC and some configuration done on FortiNAC. FortiNAC is a Fortinet network access control solution that can secure your network, give you enough visibility across your ecosystem, and do a level of control and automated responses. We are going to learn all that in this playlist video. So we are going to go over how we are going to set up the FortiNAC network, most especially how to be able to integrate FortiNAC to our existing network, or you can also set it up from scratch. So this would be like a basic fundamental knowledge you need to have, even if you want to build an enterprise network and integrate FortiNAC into it. So I'll give us like a basic diagram. These are FortiNAC system. I have my FortiGate device as well, and also the switches. The switch is being managed by FortiGate. So I have my switch here also as well. So this is the switch, and we have the ports on being managed by FortiGate. But regardless of the kind of switches or third-party vendor product you're using, you can still be able to make use of this video to set up FortiNAC in your environment. So I'm going to give you like a diagram and a network information we are going to use. So first, let's go through this. So this is a basic diagram that I've just created with my Painter software. So we have the FortiNAC device, which is this, and we have the switch, whether Forti switch, Cisco switch, or any kind of switch that you're going to use. We have it here, and we have our layer 3 device, which can be your router, which can be your L3 switch, and it can be your FortiGate device or your firewall. We have it here as well. So we have basically 3 components network devices that are common in every environment, and you can be able to integrate FortiNAC to your existing network. So on FortiNAC, you only need 2 interfaces on FortiNAC, which is it's 0 and it's 1. So according to this, for the production network, before in the introduction of FortiNAC, we have an existing network which is on 10.200.2.0/24. You can see that our PC is on 10.200.2.2, camera 10.2.200. So this is an existing network, and the gateway here for on the L3 switches the 10.200.2.254. That means that all these PC IP cameras, IP phones has this it's 0 gateway as their gateway. So by introducing FortiNAC, we put the management interface of FortiNAC, which is it's 0 on 10.200.2.10, which means that FortiNAC with its 0 interface can be able to have access to all the devices on your network, which is very proper. So you need to configure, you need to add FortiNAC to your network and on its 0, so that you can be able to have access to all your devices on its 0. That one will make a lot of changes just for visibility sake and a level of control when being implemented. So we're also going to have provision it's 1. So it's 1 on FortiNAC is for the enforcement portal, to set up your enforcement portal, such as isolation, registration, authentication, quarantine, remediation, and all that. So we need to set up this each one, and the each one don't necessarily have to have the same level of access that Ethereum have. So we are going to go through the setup in this video. So we have our H1 setup. So on FortiNAC, we have 10.200.2.10. I'm going to show you. So on FortiNAC here, when you set up your FortiNAC device, so coming to your basic network, so you would see this is a system configuration and all that. So port 1 here is 10.200.2.10, which is your IP address for the 80 FortiNAC. Then you use the default gateway as 10.200.2.254. So don't forget what we have here, that we have 10.200.2.10, and we have the gateway here as 10.200.2.254, which is on the L3. So let me show you the gateway on the L3 device. So on the L3 device, we have come to FortiGate, come to interface. So we have 10.200.2.254. So this serves as the gateway for the FortiNAC H0 interface. So that one is established. Then coming to H1, we have for the H1 we have 10.200.9.10, which is the H1 network on FortiNAC, 10.200.9.10. Then the gateway here is also 10.200.9.254, which is on the L3 device. It's an interface that is connected to the switch or to your normal switch and all that. So let me show you on the FortiNAC view. So when you come to FortiNAC, you see this is an interface on. So this is isolation layer 3. So you have to check this when setting up the H1, which has to be the port 2 of FortiNAC. So on a normal on your VM, FortiNAC VM to be it's 1. So on a device, normal device is port 2. So we have this checked, which is isolation. We have 10.200.9.10. Then the gateway is 10.200.9.254, and the subnet is /24. So on FortiGate device, we have it as 10.200.9.254. So this interface on FortiNAC will be connected to your switch as well. So we have this setup also. Then this has been set up. Now, most deployments, because we have this H1 setup as isolation interface for all that. So mostly, if you look at this registration, remediation, dead end, and all that, in some certain scenarios, using the isolation interface, H1 in your deployment can function, can do the functionality of all this when you want to do maybe a registration, remediation, and all that. Just setting this up alone can, do the functionality of registration, remediation, dead end, and all that. So you might not need to do all this and all that, but in a very large deployment, you might want to also we might also configure all this, but in a normal deployment, generally, setting this up, isolation interface will work for all this. So you might not need to, set this up. So if you look at the document, like documentation, isolation interface, layer 3.1 can function for all other functional enforcement portal functionality. So you might not need to set up all this registration. Let's just focus on this as well. So now we have this setup, and we have the gateway on our FortiNAC, on our FortiGate device, which is the L3 device, and on that. So we should be able to ping both sides on FortiNAC and on FortiGate, both ends and all that. Then let's go to the isolation network itself. So now we want to, so this H1 is just an interface that will do some level of maybe DHCP provisioning for maybe registration or isolation networks that you are going to provision. So now we need to also assign an interface to the isolation network. So for instance, if a PC connects to your switch and they need to do a level of maybe registration and isolation. There is a network that FortiNAC needs to, switch them to, maybe a porter, a captive porter. So the captive porter needs an IP address network so that FortiNAC can be able to do that level of enforcement to the connecting client and all that. So we are going to set up a DHCP scope on the FortiNAC it1 so that every connecting client that needs to do a form of remediation registration can get this IP address. So FortiNAC will use this it1 interface to be able to switch the users to the captive portal and all that. So on the layer 3, on your layer 3 device, on this it1 interface, we need to create a sub interface. We need to make it a trunk. So this switch, this port that the it1 gateway is connecting to on your switch, you have to make it a trunk port so that you can be able to, you can be able to assign VLANs to the trunk, do a form of VLANs tagging and all that. So we would configure this switch as a trunk port, then putting it on FortiGate device. The it1 interface on FortiGate device as the IP address, which is 10.200.9.6. Then there's a sub interface on this it1 that we need to create for the isolation network, which we are going to create now. So on your FortiNAC device, we need to create a scope for a DHCP scope for the captive portal IP addresses. So, we're creating. So coming here under this label, let's just modify this as the DHCP scope. I've created it. So let's just see how we created it. So here we have label it headquarter, which is the site name. Then the gateway for the isolation portal network, which is this is the gateway which is created on FortiNAC. Don't forget that we use this interface because this FortiLink interface because we are using FortiGate to manage our FortiSwitch. So if you are using FortiGate to manage your FortiSwitch, then you would notice that you have a FortiLink that can join the FortiGate with the FortiLink so that you can with the FortiSwitch so that you can manage them. So in cases where you are not using FortiSwitch or you are not managing FortiSwitch with FortiGate, or you are not you are using a third-party vendor, you can create the sub interface using this network. The key thing is that you have a sub interface on the layer 3 that has the VLAN and ID of 99. You understand? Or any VLAN ID that you're going to use for the isolation portal. So we have this created here. So on our FortiNAC, we had this as a scope. So we have this as a scope. The FortiGate, the gateway is 172.18.99.254. Then mask is this. Then adding this, you start with 172.18.99.1 and then with 252, and that's how we have this. Then you apply. You can leave this alone. So I'll talk about adding. So when you apply, let's cancel. So we have this here already. Then this has been set up on FortiNAC. One thing that you also want to do is that you want to give your FortiNAC an host name, and you want to be able to we want to create a DNS record for FortiNAC on your server so that you can be able to recognize FortiNAC with the FQDN, fully qualified domain name. You understand? It's very important that you create a DNS record for the FortiNAC IP address using this it's0 IP on your DNS so that you can easily resolve. So this will now be fortinac.fortinet.demo. You understand? So you need to create this, very important. So on creating this, you can leave this alone. So FortiNAC will use this to call whether you want users to register, you will use this domain name to call up the portals for your users. So this has been done. So another thing we also want to do is that we've set up, let's know what we've done so far. So yeah, we've set up it's one, it's zero, it's one. We've set up the isolation network for FortiNAC and both on the FortiNAC device and on the FortiSwitch on our A3 device and all that. And we've also configured the gateway for our isolation portal on the sub interface of the L3 device. So another thing we want to do, because each one will be a DHCP server for all our connecting clients that needs to maybe register, needs to be enforced with policies and all that. We need to create a relay on. We need to create a relay on this FortiNAC isolation gateway that we've created. So we need to create a relay to the it1 and it0 network. And you can do that by on FortiGate. You can be able to add two DHCP relay IP address via CLI. You get so the first relay you can use config system interface. Then you edit the ports you want to modify. Then you set DHCP IP address for DHCP relay IP. So the first one here is the it1 interface. So that means that any device connecting to your network and maybe doesn't meet a level of requirement or wants to do a self-guest registration and all that, they are going to get their IP address, like their captive portal IP address from the FortiNAC device that we've set up here. So this is the pool. So they're going to get an IP between 172.18.99.1 to 172.18.99.250. So it's very important that we set up this relay on for the isolation portal here. Then we also set up a relay for the it's0 interface. Why? Because we need the DHCP fingerprint for FortiNAC. This is how FortiNAC recognizes most of the connecting clients, their OS, most especially their layer 2 information in terms of the OS they're using, in terms of their MAC address and all that. So it's very important that we set up the relay on this interface as well on this isolation. And another thing you want to do is that for your production environment, your production network that you'll be using, you also need to set up DHCP relay to the it's0 network. So for instance, we have this guest network. So you have your guest network, you have both the DHCP range for your guest that is connecting to your network, and you are also doing a relay to the it's0 network. So on your production network and on your guest network, you're doing a relay to the it's0 network for DHCP fingerprints. It's very important so that if you're doing a device profiling, FortiNAC can have enough information to profile all your connecting clients. It's very important. But for the isolation, you need to do a DHCP relay to both interfaces, it's0 and it's1, so that any connecting client that doesn't meet a level of requirements you've set, or there needs to do a self-guest registration and all that, will get IP address from the FortiNAC device and all that. So basically, these are everything we need to do. Then after we've done all this, so now coming back to our diagram, we've been able to trash out all these things has been completed. Everything here has been completed, but we need to do a firewall policy, access and all that, which I'm going to show you next. So for instance, we've done all this and we're good to go. But we need to do so let's go to our firewall policy so that So to be able to initiate communication between all of the things we've done. So for instance, internet access can be created for most of your users, your production network and all that. This is where you set up your, your internet access, which you would have had in existence before the introduction of FortiNAC. Then we have the server. If you have your production, if you have your server, okay, let's do this. I'll do the next one. So set up for, if you have your server on another subnet, you need to be able to, create access for the FortiNAC it's one, your production, to be able to reach the server, most especially your DNS server, your domain controller servers, and all that. So we need to create access for the it's one network and it's zero network from FortiNAC to have access to the DHCP server, to the DNS server or the domain controller server in your environment. Then the management access. So you want to also be able to create access from all your guest network. This just for management, to be able to reach the management of your FortiGates. This is just for that one. Then if you're using FortiGate to manage your FortiSwitch, or your switches and all that, this policy is very important. So your FortiLink interface must be able to communicate with your management, your FortiGate management interface, and vice versa. So this rule is very important. The last one, which is very important, is that your FortiNAC isolation interface, which is the 172.18.9.9, the captive portal network, must be able to communicate with your it's1 network, which is on the FortiNAC. You get, so you have to be able to communicate. This is a sub interface on your L3 device. It must be able to communicate with this interface here. So you can see this. So from FortiNAC isolation, which is 172.18.9.9.254, must become able to communicate with 10.200.9.254 at .10 network. You understand? So, and the communication must be vice versa, which is very important. You need to be able to set this up. Communication is very important. So coming to your FortiNAC VN, so we've spoken about the importance of setting up DNS record so that FortiNAC can be able to resolve the IP address. The system can be able to resolve the host name and to the IP address of FortiNAC and all that. Then you have to be able to set up your NTP server. Is very important to your local time zones, which is quite important. Then after you are setting this up, so I mentioned that the registration, all these are not really important. You might not set them up because the isolation, the first one you set up here can be used for the other ones, which is very important. Then can now come to routing. So in terms of routing, you want to be able to ensure that you can be able to reach the from here you create a route to the isolation network. So you can see if I had a new one, so I'll put the network of 172.18.9.9.0, which is our captive portal network, isolation network. Then the 255.255.255.0. Then the gateway is the gateway of the FortiNAC of this FortiNAC, which is this. So this will serve as the gateway for our routes that we're doing here. So we see 10.200.9.254, which is this interface, which is very important to set up. Then we put it here 10.200.9.254. Then you add it. So after you add it, to be added here. So this 200.5. So this 200.5 is that you're adding also here is if you have your domain controller or any other network that is not within the scope of what we've done, you can add the route here so that FortiNAC can be able to reach them. So this network is the network of our server that we have for our DNS and all that. So if you have your DNS server within your production network, this might not be needed, so you can just leave it. But this is very important to add. You have to add your routes and all that. Then come to summary. So you see in the summary, you can be able to review everything you've done. Then when you apply, you're going to apply, then you're going to reboot afterwards. So we ask you to, to reboot the system. That's when everything you've done will be applied. You understand? The system, and I would now apply everything. So basically this is everything, not really everything, but the fundamentals you need to know to be able to set up, or maybe for a small network, and you can build on this to be able to apply, and to be able to apply to a large enterprise and all that. Please let me know if this actually helped you. Thank you.